Okay, so now let's see. Can I make this bigger? No. Alright, so I got my backdrop going there. And alright, so now we're getting back into shadow integration. And give me a second. You may hear a slight pause. Okay, let's see. Yeah, give me a second here. How you doing? Yeah, you doing all right? So anyways, I'm doing a walk and talk, but so you see how I'm going into narcissism, and this goes back to what I was talking about with shadow integration. And so it may kind of have seemed like that shadow integration doesn't really have much to do with the storyboard and the thing. And see that this is why one of the complexities of my story, because it gets into psychopathy and chronic narcissism and shit, and then I feel like Scully, where I'm like, that's the reptilian, not, and then my psycho ex is like, no, I'm not the reptilian, he's the reptilian. and it's kind of a scary position to be in, because you start to question yourself, where you're like, wait, am I me, or is that me? Who's who? And it might seem unbelievable, especially to someone who may not have encountered this kind of shit. That it's like, really, how could you know who you are and stuff, and you would be surprised, and that's why it's kind of scary, man. It's not it's kind of spooky. This is why psychopaths are kind of spooky, and it's crazy. And so this is where it gets unbelievable, and then it starts to get, you start talking about the psychology of the mind and shit, but it's a big part of it, especially if you encounter a close encounter with a psychopath. It's a very complex thing, dude. And full-blown narcissists and and narcissistic psychopaths, I mean, they are, I'll put it to you this way, it's not intelligence, it's that they've just, from an early age, they have just grown accustomed, they've discovered, this like evil and how they can use it to their advantage. And they've just always done it. Their whole life, all they've ever done is project everything onto everyone else, manipulate and control everyone around them however they can to get what they want and what they need, no matter what. And so it's all self-centered to the extreme. Everything is about them. And to the extreme, I mean, people like this could be inadvertently killing people and they wouldn't even care. Like, that their actions are literally killing people and they wouldn't even care, even if you told them, like, say they were unaware that their actions were killing people, and they were what's up, man? They were unaware, and yet and you showed it to them, where you're like, dude, you just killed this person or people by your actions. They wouldn't have any empathy at all. They wouldn't even care. They would continue on in their behavior without question. They have no remorse or regret or anything. So if you remember when I was talking about shadow integration, well, and that's kind of what I was doing, where it's like, well, let me look at myself. Let me use this so-called expert on narcissism, this woman who's an expert on narcissism, as a measurement to see if I'm a narcissist, that's what shadow integration is. Shadow integration is looking at, okay, if these are all the different traits and symptoms and signs of a narcissist, let me apply those to me. How am I doing those things? Do I have ironically enough, when you listen to it, it's just why I did that last video, is to show you, is like, look, everybody does this shit. Everybody has these things, right? And, but see, most people, or I won't say most, okay, but many people, they would never even take the time to look at themselves, like, wait, am I a narcissist? They would never even, the majority of people, your average person is conditioned to not look at themselves, to not look at what they're doing, and to always fixate on what's wrong with everything and everyone else, and never look at themselves. This is part of the conspiracy. This all works in favor of the master class. And that's a great way, a tool that the master class has to keep everyone divided, is to have everybody looking at what's wrong with everyone else and not looking at their own self. So it's part of the whole conspiracy. It's part of the Freemason system. The Freemasonic beast system is designed that way, to condition all of us to never look at ourselves, but to always be looking and fault finding at everyone else. And the narcissistic psychopath is like advanced in that's their whole thing. They've got it down to a science where they can project their faults onto you. They'll claim that they're the victim while they're beating you to the ground, and all the while crying wolf that they're the victim. So this all goes back to shadow integration, and it's just, I guess I don't know that a lot of people are going to be able to connect the dots on this, and it might be because I'm not articulating it well enough or whatever. But so I would have to ask the audience to bear with me while I soundboard this, because even though I may not be very well at articulating it, like, this is a huge part of just everyday life and everything. Although really it's a huge part of the storyboard, like my story, because that's what she was able to do, And I really stay away from, if you've noticed over all the different hours of storyboarding, I really don't say her name. Every once, I avoid pointing out who this person is. That's not the point of this, because as soon as I do, then I can be perceived as projecting, etc., etc. And so, and I can be accused and assumed of being a disgruntled boyfriend, blah blah blah. And so that's why I've avoided. And all throughout the 2 years, whenever I did talk about it, I never exposed who this person is on a public level. There are people in this town that know me, that know exactly who it is. But I'm not publicly going out and publicly exposing this person and their name and everything else. Because it would take away from the credibility of the story. For one, it would take away my credibility, and it would put into question my motives. Like, why am I doing this? Because it looks like if I were to do that, then it would just look like I'm just trying to character assassinate this person out of resentment and stuff. But anyways, going back to shadow integration, so it's all goes back to that, and really I start questioning myself. So when she's doing all this shit to me, I'm like I'm questioning myself, like, do I deserve this? Did I do something wrong? Like, what did I do? And then when you have a vulnerable narcissist, well, their whole persona is that they're this meek, sullen, quiet, soft-spoken. And so, it's all extremely difficult to process, because you start questioning everything, including reality, itself. And then, because she's so secret, like, I never got any closure to this day. Like, there's been no, and which is really, really weird. I'm just going to be all over the place on this video, but I remember, like, when it first happened, when I was in Denver, and she dumped me through a text. And one of my coworkers was this woman who was very level-headed, a very seemingly balanced person, and she was kind of probing me, like, trying to find out what happened, And so I just kind of told her about, in a general way, what had happened and how she had dumped me through a text for no reason, and la la la. And the whole time I was explaining this to this woman, I could see the wheels turning in her head. I could see her. She was listening to me and trying to comprehend and process what I was explaining. And she was very objective when she said this. And she's, after I explained it to her, she pointed out, she said, if I was in a relationship with a guy, and we lived together for 3 years, and we were in a relationship together for 3 years, I would never just break up with them through a text while they were out of town. Like, I would never do, like, I would wait until he came back to town and sit down and have a face-to-face conversation with him and tell him, I would never, like, just do that. And so she's trying to figure out why somebody would do that, And she's not necessarily taking my side or my Psycho X's, because she doesn't really know either of us. She kind of knows me a little bit, because we worked together for like 3 weeks. But that's all. She only knew me for like 3 weeks. And she hadn't met my Psycho X. So she didn't really have any skin in the game one way or the other. She was just making an objective observation that if she were in a relationship with someone for 3 years, and she lived with the guy she was in a relationship, she could not comprehend that at all. To just dump the guy while he's out of town on a job and dump him through a text. Like, she could not understand that or process it. And she was very confused. Okay. Now, there could be a good reason for a woman to do that to a guy. Well, what if the guy was abusive and beating her up and this and that, and she wanted to escape the guy? And I think that was part of this woman's thought process as she was listening to the story. If she wasn't necessarily taking one side or the other, it was a very objective observation that was like, I don't understand this. Why would someone who is in a relationship for 3 years and living with their partner for 3 years, all of a sudden, out of the blue, for no reason, just dump them through a text while their fucking partner was out of town on a job? Like, that doesn't make any sense. There is something else going on, right? And it could be me. It could be I deserved it because I was beating her, this and that. But see, and that's what's so insane is I was doing the opposite. I was basically her caretaker. Like, she's a child and I'm providing for her. So it's like, talk about biting the hand that feeds you. I mean, it was pure insanity. But anyways, so it, like, none of it, and then of course, like, I'm like looking at myself like, what did I do? Did I do something that, or what, is this some kind of big misunderstanding? And then there was zero closure. There was no, I was not given, she just completely cut off all communication with me. I just completely cut off. So anyways, like I said, this video, I had a kind of direction that I was going to go, but I'm kind of all over the place. But anyways, I did want to go back to like shadow integration because that's what this is all about. Like with her and me and this whole event, and because it involves narcissism and psychopathy. Well, that's what the shadow archetype is. The archetype of narcissism. The shadow archetype is the archetype of psychopathy, and we all have that archetype within us. We all have that dark side. There are people that have allowed their dark side to be the dominant, the dominant persona. They have chosen, consciously chosen. And I guess that is kind of arguable, but anyways, I don't want to go too much on a tangent on this. I need to gather my thoughts together more, which is the whole point of the storyboard, is constantly trying to gather my thoughts and then to be able to put sections of it on video and plaster it to the storyboard and then go back. And sometimes when I try to do a video, I haven't gathered my thoughts well enough, and so then it's not effective. Whereas other times my thoughts are gathered and I'm able to kind of make some headway in the storyboard, and then sometimes, I mean, it's just hit or miss, you know, and this feels kind of like a miss video, but for me, but I don't know. And a lot of times I don't know. I'll think a video is just not really getting to the point, and then when I review it as part of the storyboard, I realize there's details in there that are very, very important. And then other times I'll do a video where I'll think that this is good, and then when I step back later and look at it, it's like that was kind of like not really a lot of substance in that one, and so that's what all this is about. And I want to just go back to, there was a guy that asked me to tell my story. He really wanted to hear my story. And this is one reason why I'm doing the storyboard thing, is so that I can actually present the story, present it, so that people, because there are people that would want to hear this story. And it's very hard to tell the story. And so by doing this is how I'm kind of trying to organize everything so that I can tell the story. And so it's gonna be a long thing. It's gonna take a while, but I think I can do it. It's just, this is the whole process. So this is the process of figuring out how to tell it. And this went way off. I had a specific thing that I was gonna focus on this video, and it just went all over the place, which is fine. But so apologies if this was kind of a big clusterfuck for any viewer.